What if you were told that the entire observable universe, like every galaxy, every single star, the planet you're literally standing on right now, what if all of that is just a single microscopic speck of dust floating in this much larger, completely invisible reality?
Right. It's a huge concept to wrap your head around because it completely upends our standard definition of reality. I mean, we're so accustomed to relying on our senses, to define what is real.
Yeah, if we can measure it or, map it, then it exists.
Exactly. But the cosmology we are looking at today argues that our physical map is not just incomplete, it's barely even a footnote in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that's wild. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to explore this highly intricate, genuinely fascinating metaphysical text that maps out the cosmos in a way you have probably never considered before.
It really is unique. It details this invisible parallel realm known as the Elysium world.
Right. And before we really get into the mechanics of this, let's lay down some ground rules for you listening. Today, we are exploring a very specific spiritual and metaphysical text. We are not endorsing these viewpoints. We are definitely not taking any religious sides here, and we are not presenting this as empirical science.
Yeah, that's an important distinction to make.
For sure. Our goal is just to be your impartial tour guides. We're just reporting the incredible imagery, the ideas, and the cosmology contained purely within this source material, just to help you understand its unique worldview.
And it really is a breathtaking piece of world building. I mean, the source blends elements of Buddhism with this deeply imaginative physics and a really grand cosmic hierarchy.
So how does it actually break down reality? Because it's not just one big universe, right?
No, it essentially breaks reality down into two main categories. You have positive space and negative space, and it details exactly what goes on in the realms we cannot physically see.
Okay, so before we can really visit this Elysium universe, we have to understand the physics of how it supposedly operates, right on top of our own world. Let's start with the positive universe.
Right, so according to this framework, realms like the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world, they belong to the positive universe.
And what does that mean, practically speaking?
It means things there have a physical form. They possess an objective existence that you can interact with physically. And most importantly, they have a lifespan. They are bound by time, so they eventually end.
Okay, but the Elysium world, which this cosmology aligns with the Western Elysium world in Buddhism, that operates on an entirely different set of physical laws.
Exactly. The text classifies it as negative space.
So what does negative space actually mean for the things inside it?
Well, in negative space, the whole concept of a physical body is just irrelevant. Time essentially disappears. Objects and beings don't exist because they have a physical form. They exist purely by their eternal nature.
Yep.
Yeah, they can take on a temporary physical form if they need to interact with the positive world, but their true baseline existence is totally abstract. It's just pure information and spiritual energy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let me see if I can translate this for you listening. So if the positive universe is the hardware, like the physical phone or computer you were listening to this on, the casing you can actually touch,
Right, the physical stuff.
then Elysium is like the cloud software running invisibly in the background. Like it contains massive amounts of information, it dictates how things operate, but it isn't bound by the physical microchip.
Yeah, that analogy holds up really well. And to make it even more grounded, the source actually uses a phenomenon we all experience to explain negative space: dreams.
Wait, really? Dreams?
Yeah, dreams, according to this text, are not just random neurons firing in your sleep. They are actual excursions into negative space.
Hold on. You are saying that when I am asleep
Hmm.
and I am dreaming that I don't know, forgot to wear pants to a high school math test,
Yeah.
I am navigating a real metaphysical location.
Well, within the logic of this text, yes. But the environment of that location, the size, the vividness, the color of your specific dream world, all of that is dictated entirely by what the text calls your spiritual mass or your perception.
Interesting. So what does a high spiritual mass dream look like?
If someone has a highly refined spiritual nature, their negative space is expansive. They will dream in vivid, brilliant colors. They might dream of soaring above clouds or interacting with gods and higher beings or getting glimpses of higher realms.
Okay, but what if you were someone who mostly dreams about really mundane things? Like, I just dream about sitting in an office, answering emails, or wandering the aisles of a grocery store. What does that say about you?
The source actually addresses that. It argues that people whose dreams are strictly confined to mundane human society, they possess a lower thinking ability or a denser, heavier spiritual mass.
Ouch. So I'm just metaphysically dense.
Well, according to the text, their access to negative space is restricted by their own spiritual limitations. But those with deeper perception, they might actually solve complex waking world problems in their sleep because they are accessing a broader, more fundamental layer of reality.
That's fascinating. But, if you are listening to this on your commute right now and you're looking at physical cars and concrete buildings, it is really hard to accept the premise that all of this is just the hardware and the real action is happening in some invisible software layer.
Oh, absolutely. It's counterintuitive to everything we experience.
So how does the text prove to a skeptic that this negative space is constantly overlapping our own?
What's fascinating here is it actually points to the human brain itself. The text explicitly states that the human brain is a holographic reflection of the entire universe.
A holographic reflection, like it mirrors everything.
Yeah, exactly. In the same way a single drop of blood contains your entire genetic code, the brain has the inherent capacity to reflect both positive and negative space. But it also acknowledges our limitations. It notes that even with our wildest, most bizarre imaginations, human beings still just cannot grasp the staggering scope of what is actually out there in the universe.
Okay, so if this invisible software is running constantly over the city street we're walking down, it begs an obvious question. What do we look like to the software?
Right.
Like if someone in the Elysium world is looking down at Earth, how do we appear to them?
Well, from the perspective of Elysium, the Earth looks nothing like a blue and green sphere. And humans certainly do not look like flesh and blood. From that vantage point, we basically appear as varying columns of light.
Wait, so you're telling me we're basically walking around broadcasting our spiritual status like a visible Wi-Fi signal?
Pretty much. More like a luminous pillar, actually.
Okay.
And the quality of that pillar is determined entirely by your spiritual nature, your spiritual mass.
So what do the different pillars look like?
It varies wildly. Some people have almost no form at all. They barely register in negative space. Others appear as a dim, weak light. Some project a dense red light, while those with highly elevated spiritual mass, they appear as brilliantly colorful, towering columns.
That is quite the visual.
And it isn't a static aura either. This light column actively changes based on your long-term self-refinery or, conversely, your self-deterioration.
I can just hear the skeptic asking, well, if towering columns of light are walking around everywhere, why can't I see them?
A very fair question.
But the source uses these great, highly logical biological analogies to address exactly that. It points out that just because we cannot see a field rat running through the grass on a pitch-black night, we don't assume the field rat ceased to exist.
Right, because an owl can see it perfectly fine.
Exactly. The owl's retina structure is built to process that specific wavelength of reality.
Our inability to perceive something is merely a limitation of our specific biological hardware. It's not proof of that thing's non-existence.
And the text also uses the firefly, which I love. If we look at a firefly in the dark, all we see is the blinking light. We don't logically conclude that the firefly is just a floating, disembodied orb with no head or wings.
No, we know our vision is just clipping out the rest of the insect in the dark.
Right. And the cosmology applies that exact same logic to reality itself. We simply lack the biological tools to see the invisible life teeming everywhere. It says life is inside stones, surviving in a total vacuum, riding on light rays. It even mentions the ghosts living in the buffer zones between the yin and yang worlds.
And because of this fundamental difference in how positive and negative spaces operate, the mechanics of travel are entirely distinct too.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you want to access higher physical realms, like the thousand-year world we mentioned earlier, you are still bound by the laws of physics. You need time. You have to travel through what the source calls space tunnels.
Okay, so a physical journey.
Yeah.
But getting to Elysium is totally different, right?
It's a totally different ballgame. It is instantaneous. Because Elysium is a negative space, the concept of distance is just void.
So how do you get there?
If your spiritual nature reaches the correct frequency, the text states you can, quote, become the Buddha very shortly. It takes zero time. You simply tune into the reality and you are there.
Okay, but if time and distance don't exist in Elysium, then how can it possibly have borders? How do you map a place that has no physical space? because the architecture this text draws out is mind-bogglingly huge.
It really is. The
Mhm.
scale is almost impossible to visualize. The cosmology states that our entire Earth universe, meaning everything human beings can observe with our most powerful telescopes,
Yeah.
it's just a single particulate.
A particulate, meaning like a single speck of dust.
Yes,
Yeah.
just one speck, and just to cross this single speck using a space tunnel would take 1,860 years, which the text calculates as over 5.8 billion light years.
Just to cross the speck.
Right. Earth is just a tiny, insignificant member of a solar system. Those systems roll up into Milky Way systems, then those roll up into 3,000 rotary river worlds, and all of them are revolving around a central core called the heaven world.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The text takes those 3,000 massive worlds and divides them into 10 continents, or Buddha states. But these continents aren't separated by oceans or void space.
No, the division has absolutely nothing to do with physical geography or the number of planets.
Right, the borders are based entirely on the features and mass of life. Essentially, the level of Buddhism or the density of your spiritual frequency.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this hierarchy is the backbone of spiritual mobility in this framework. You are automatically placed on the continent that matches your exact spiritual mass.
Can you give an example of how that works?
Sure. The text uses Sakyamuni, the historical Buddha. It notes he originally lived on the Lotus continent, which is the lowest tier of the 10. He came from there to the mortal world, completed his mission, and upon his return, his elevated spiritual mass automatically placed him on the God's continent.
So if travel to Elysium is instantaneous, why can't a being on a lower continent just, will themselves to visit a higher one?
Because there are strict, impenetrable metaphysical regulations preventing it, the source likens it to the famous Chinese mythological story of the Monkey King drawing a protective circle on the ground for Monk Tang.
Oh, right.
If you don't possess the specific magical power, or in this case, the requisite spiritual frequency, you physically and metaphysically cannot cross the line. The environment simply rejects you.
Wow. Okay. So let's test this consciousness equals environment idea. To really understand what existence looks like when willpower replaces physics, we need to look at this incredibly detailed story the text provides about a party on the Celestial Islands continent.
Oh, this story is amazing. So the Celestial Islands continent is described as a rotating disk of mist and dust that is 300,000 light years wide.
Just casual 300,000 light years.
Right. And the mist is actually the Heaven River, and the dust particles are 80 billion planet-sized islands. 30 billion of these are inhabited by celestial beings, and 50 billion are currently empty.
Just waiting for people.
Literally waiting for humans to elevate their spiritual mass and claim them.
So the story zeroes in on one of these, Snow Peak Island. And it is completely desolate. Dry, cracked, no plants, no animals. Just a 10-tiered mountain that shifts colors, ending in a snow-white peak.
Very barren.
Very. And at the bottom of this mountain, a totally common stone suddenly wiggles and transforms into this breathtakingly beautiful celestial being named Yu.
Right, and as the master of this newly claimed island, she decides she wants to demonstrate a new magical spell she's mastered. So she invites some friends from across the cosmos.
The invitation method is so wild. She exhales glowing fireballs from her head that just shoot off into space. And the source actually follows one fireball as it flies over oceans and islands until it finds a dolphin sleeping on a beach.
Yeah, a dolphin.
The fireball enters the dolphin. The dolphin shakes, turns into a handsome man, summons a winged horse right out of the ocean waves, and rides off into the sky to attend the party.
And the guests arriving at Snow Peak Island, they represent a spectacle of absolute cosmic diversity. The text details them arriving on the strangest conveyances. They're riding peacocks, floating on giant pen holders, wrapped inside tornadoes, or being pulled on dog sledges.
And the beings themselves are equally bizarre.
Oh,
right?
definitely. Some are massive giants, some have 18 hands, some have 3 eyes, some are gorgeous fairies, and some have beards that literally drag on the ground.
But remember, they were arriving on a totally barren rock. So one of the guests, a giant red-faced Buddha, essentially complains, like, you invited us here, you can't just make us stand around in the dirt.
Yeah, he wants some hospitality.
Exactly. And what follows is a masterclass in how negative space operates. Yu smiles, waves her right sleeve, and instantly conjures a massive palace with red bricks, green tiles, and miles of corridors.
Then she waves her left sleeve, and thousands of exotic plants, bamboo forests, and fragrant fruit trees instantly sprout from the barren ground.
Wait, so when a guest asks for furniture, and she throws pears from a tree that transform into carved tables and chairs as they hit the ground,
Yeah.
is she building those chairs atom by atom?
No, she isn't assembling physical matter at all. She is exercising absolute command over negative space. Her willpower is dictating the nature of the space around her.
So she just thinks it, and it is.
Exactly. Consciousness and environment are the exact same thing in this realm.
That explains the waiters then. A guest asks what she's going to put in an empty courtyard. She conjures a pond filled with frogs and swans. Then she breathes a mist over a peach tree. The peaches fall and become fairies carrying trays.
And the frogs.
The frogs jump out of the pond and transform into handsome waiters in black, pouring glowing, fragrant, magical wine from glazed kettles. She is manipulating existing spiritual forms to serve temporary needs.
The wine itself is perhaps the most vivid example of this. Inside the luminous cups, the guests don't just see liquid. They see living miniature sea creatures swimming around, like goldfish, tiny dragons, seahorses.
Drinking tiny living dragons at a party feels like a very strange flex.
It does. But the text clarifies that these creatures are actually a miraculous spiritual drug. It's a gift from you to her guests to elevate their own spiritual mass. They drink it down, and when Master Empty, a highly respected elder, asks for more entertainment, the ducks from the pond turn into an orchestra playing lutes, and the swans turn into dancers in the sky.
It is such a vivid, sensory-rich celebration. But the most crucial part of this story is the ending. When the party is over and the guests fly away, you simply exhales a white mist. Instantly, the palace, the plants, the waiters, the tables, everything vanishes without a trace.
Just gone.
The island returns to a desolate, barren wasteland. You turns into a golden ray of light and absorbs herself back into the mountain.
It perfectly illustrates the core rule of negative space. Things exist by their eternal nature, and they only take on physical form temporarily, purely based on immediate need.
Right, in this case, an entire ecosystem was willed into existence just to host a gathering.
And the moment the need passed, the environment dissolved.
So that spectacular shape-shifting party represents just one tiny island on one continent. Where do the rest of the realms fit into this ultimate map of reality? Because the text doesn't stop there. It outlines 18 layers of reality in total.
Right, the cosmology categorizes the remaining cosmic layers into senior, intermediate, and junior spaces, and the implications of these locations are profoundly fascinating.
Where do we start?
Well, for instance, in the senior space, there is the Moon Temple continent.
Oh, this one stood out to me as incredibly syncretic. The source material claims this is where Allah, the ancestor of the Buddha, and Yahweh all reside and teach together.
Yeah, it attempts to unify major terrestrial religions into one cohesive metaphysical tier.
And then what about the intermediate space?
In the intermediate space, we find the holographic order world. The text describes this as the protective eggshell on the outer edge of the universe. It claims that if your thinking enters a chaotic state here, you achieve absolute freedom and integration with the Tao.
Okay, let's pause on that because integration with the Tao and entering a chaotic state are really heavy concepts.
They are.
For someone not deeply versed in Eastern philosophy, what does non-dualism mean in the context of this holographic order world?
Yeah.
Are we talking about erasing the line between good and evil?
Essentially, yes. The text uses a very extreme philosophical framework here. It suggests that in this state of absolute non-dualism, the separation between the self and the universe completely collapses.
So no more individual identity.
None. Human moral frameworks are shed entirely. It states that in this state, any action you take, even taking hundreds of lives, is quote-unquote right because you are entirely merged with the universal flow. There is no longer a you making a choice. There is only the universe acting through itself.
Wow. Which is a terrifyingly vast, heavy way to describe absolute metaphysical freedom. You are shedding all human context in the face of raw, universal energy.
Yeah, it's intense. And speaking of heavy concepts, the text also introduces black hole bodies and places them in a deeply unexpected context.
Tell me about the black holes.
Well, the cosmology divides black hole bodies by polarity. The cathode black hole body is described as a high-energy prison for gods who have broken heaven's laws.
So the gravity is spiritual detention.
Exactly.
Right.
Meanwhile, the anode black hole body is defined as the female womb.
Wait, hold on. A black hole is a literal womb. How does this cosmology bridge the gap between a cosmic singularity in deep space and human biology? That sounds like a massive categorical leap.
It comes back to the idea we discussed earlier. The brain and the human body as a holographic reflection of the universe. The text gives the physical human womb and the metaphysical outer shell of the entire universe the exact same cosmological weight.
That is wild.
This raises an important question about how the text categorizes reality. It places human dreams, bacteria, and insects all together in the intermediate world because, in this framework, scale doesn't matter. The mechanism of creation in a womb operates on the exact same metaphysical frequency as a black hole generating matter or energy in space.
So what does this all mean? Like, why take this journey? Why spend time mapping out an 18-period universe we can't even see with our own eyes?
It's a valid question.
Whether you view this text as profound theology or simply as an incredible piece of imaginative metaphysical world-building, it forces you to reconsider the sheer scale of the invisible forces around us.
Definitely.
It asks you to think about the potential depth of the spaces we completely ignore in our daily lives just because we are so stubbornly focused on our solid, positive reality.
It demands that we look past our limited biological hardware and acknowledge the vastness of the unseen mechanisms driving the universe.
We've gone from the fundamental differences between hardware and software, positive and negative space, up through the frequency-locked borders of the 10 continents.
We watch willpower manipulate reality at a magically transient party on Snow Peak Island.
And we scaled the 18 layers of ultimate reality, from the moon temple to the black hole womb. But I want to leave you with one final thought, based strictly on the mechanics of this source material.
We established earlier that the dream world is an actual navigable negative space entered by your spiritual nature.
Right, but crucially, the text states that your dreams mainly reflect your future through metaphors.
Think about the implications of that.
If that is true, if dreams aren't just random brain static from a stressful day, but are actual spaces actively shaped by your spiritual mass, predicting and building your path forward, then what kind of world are you actively creating when you close your eyes to sleep tonight? Thank you for joining us on this mind-expanding deep dive. Keep questioning the map you've been handed and keep exploring the unseen layers of your own reality.